Hello, everybody, and welcome to Collateral Benefit. You can't see us yet, but here we are. Hello, look at us. Collateral Benefit here on the Zeros on Heroes podcast network, or something. We gotta build up. I cannot hear you, Will. I'm so sorry. We're having technical difficulty. How are we all? I cannot hear you. How are we all recovering from the crowd strike, internet outages? Everyone's mental health has been affected by this whole deal. While Will are you audible? Is there nothing?
Am I audible?
You are.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Am I Spotify podcast? Am I Kindle?
Are you Libby? Because that's what I use for audiobooks. Because support your public library, everybody. Go get your library card and get free audiobooks on Libby or free documentaries and movies on Canopy. Everything is for free as long as you got a library card.
When you said Libby, I was like, it sounds like some sort of a socialist project. And it's like, oh, free books from the library. Oh, it is. It is actually.
It is actually. It's like, these friggin' liberals with whatever. It's like, no. It is actually a very real and positive thing.
Can't believe they want to give me free things.
Yeah, how dare they? How dare they use my tax dollars for my own benefit? Gross.
Give me access to services that will enrich my mind and body.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Mercadal here, Zeros on Heroes, Collateral Benefit. With me, as always, is...
Oh, I'm Will Watkins.
Will Watkins. Our names are on the bottom of the screen if you're curious as to how they're spelled. And you can Google us and search us on the social media. Social media is a double-edged sword of allowing us to do this for ourselves and share our mental health journeys and our physical fitness journeys, because Collateral Benefit is all about improving ourselves, mind, body, and community. Inward, your inner being, your physical being, and your interaction with other beings as well. So that's what we're all about. That's how we're trying to. We got to jump into it. We got to explain it every. I feel like we have to explain. I have to explain it every time, but I guess we don't. We're just on our own journey. We would be doing this if no one was watching, because this is a way for us to kind of just interact with each other and boost each other up. If you have ways, if you see this in the future, please tell us if there is one. Reach back. If you can. Time travelers, please let us know.
Yeah, because we don't know if there will be. So
not sure. It's like a magic 8-ball. It's like it remains unclear.
Do you think that's like all those like scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking are always like, oh, if there were time travelers from the future, we would have met them by now. It's like, what if there is no future, and that's why we haven't met them?
Either way, yes, also accurate. There could be. It just could be that there's no future to have developed time travel in, but that actually happened. Stephen Hawking threw a party for time travelers, did not tell anyone when and where it would be until after it happened, and no one showed up. So the assumption is, in this existence, you cannot travel back in time. You would be creating a new thing in time, and therefore you can't interact with yourself the second, you know what I mean? Like the nobody came to check him out, which
I would refute this. Do you think maybe time travelers were like, why would I go back in time to hang out with some fucking nerd?
Some dorks?
Some nerd that threw up. You think a nerd's party is going to be fun?
Physicist party?
He's like, I could go back in time and hang out with Caligula. You think I'm going to go back and hang out with Stephen Hawking?
What a pull, Caligula. Go Google that, everybody.
I could either go have a nice Roman orgy or some fucking Cheetos cheese balls with fucking...
this is back in the 60s. And
Max Headroom?
What, am I going to talk physics? I just used physics to rewrite the fabric of time and space. What do you mean? I don't want to go back and talk about... Ugh, how boring.
Yeah, if somebody's already mastered time and space and they go back and talk to like Stephen Hawking from 1,000 years in the past, that'd be the same thing as us. Like, oh, I'd really love to have a conversation with this 2-year-old who has a grasp. They have the same grasp of quantum physics as I do at this moment, and it's like,
I was about to make a Booster Gold reference, and to be fair, this was originally a super nerdy Zeros on Heroes podcast of talking about our favorite heroes, comic book or otherwise. But it's interesting. Immediately, my first thoughts were like, "Well, here's a nerd reference." It's like, oh no, we can't escape the DNA of this podcast's original form.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes along with the thing where it's
It
like,
does.
The only person who would travel back in time is like the dumbest person of that era. Like they would want to interact with us. Like future scientists aren't like, hey, yeah, let's go hang out with these Neanderthals.
I do wonder. Okay, like this is all about self-improvement. If there was a way, like everybody always talks about time travel being a way. If I could go back in time, I would invest in Apple in 1978, or I would, invest in Google or Amazon and make a bunch of money. But what would you teach past you that you feel would have the most? If you could get one concept into young you's brain, this can be a fitness thing, it can be a mental health thing, it can be a humanity thing. If you could teach young you something that you know now, it's not even about super genius rewriting space and time, just same old regular ass us, just dumbass us's, going back to young dumbass us's to teach them one thing. What do you feel would be the most like ripple effecty powerful thing that you could tell young you?
As far as fitness and health would be probably be sugar is worse for you. Stop drinking a 2-liter bottle of Coke every day. I would even go so far as to say, hey, artificial sweeteners don't cause cancer and they're completely harmless. Don't believe the hype. That would be a health thing because that would have saved me so many tens of thousands of calories. And it also probably lean into the whole like eat more protein for health wise. And probably you can actually start
invest in Bitcoin.
I mean, aside from the financial stuff, obviously, the financial stuff, and here's how to stop 9/11, and that kind of thing.
Realistically, it's so funny to me how people talk about how like, all you would solve is money. It's like, no, money would solve all my problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like right now, if you gave me $1,000 in 1981 when I was born,
I would buy a house outright because that's how much it was.
Yeah, it was super. It's unfair how cheap it was. But I would like if I went back to give myself any money, it's like if I had generational wealth, I would be fine.
Oh yeah,
right? Like I would be fine. Like everything's totally manageable. Like it's like so stupid when you hear people like rich people like, oh, you could have all the money in the world, but it can't buy happiness. Like, shut the fuck up, stupid. What are you talking about? Of course it would.
Well, here's my thing: is it doesn't buy happiness; it buys security and peace of mind. That's what it buys. It buys having less anxiety.
Well, I was literally just talking about this with my wife. I was talking about this at work. How we're in a position right now where we set ourselves up, and when we moved across the country, that if we had one salary, we would be able to survive, right? And we're surviving, we're making do, because my wife lost her job, and it's such a stressful thing, much like the guy who works at CrowdStrike who clicked update on the thing and caused the collapse of our entire world. Did you see how bad it all went down?
Yeah.
That guy's for sure fired. My wife lost her job. So we had prepared, we had prepared economically or financially, however you want to. I don't know the right phraseology of it, but so we're fine. But mentally, suddenly you have to deal with the fact where it's like, okay, what is my contribution to this life then? If I can't work, right? Or because one of my coworkers, his partner is in the same situation where it's like, okay, now it's drilled into you if you're a poor immigrant or if you're a poor lower middle class person, that your only value in any kind of relationship or situation is how much money you can bring in.
Yeah.
And it's not that how much money you can bring, it's how much security and peace you can contribute. It sucks that it's that way. But now, since we set ourselves up in a way where it's not necessary, now it's like, oh, how would other humans before this, like, if we weren't in a capitalist hellscape, what would we be valuing and what would we do for each other, and how would we exist in the capitalist hellscape as somebody who isn't contributing? You know what I mean? So it's been like this interesting process. Like, if I were to go to young me, I would, the one thing I would teach is, first of all, you have ADHD and you should probably get yourself checked for ADHD, autism, OCD. Find these modernized, on the cutting edge treatments, anything to figure it out. Maybe I would have finished college.
If I had an Adderall prescription in high school, oh my God.
Unstoppable.
Oh my God. I would have become the most successful, horrific person. I'd be spitting on homeless people with all my money in my pockets.
Monster. You monster. This is a valid, we're talking about this stuff. Koji in the chat. I wouldn't change a thing. It made me who I am today. Valid. You know, that's a healthy. So whenever I do like talk, like we've done it when I used to do Unsung Heroes, when we did Unsung Heroes in the past, we would always, I remember I got into like a little trouble because somebody got very anxious with a question I asked where it was like, okay, I want to help motivate change, right, in your life. And I went out, like the theme was, I think, Crazy Rich Asians. That movie had just come out. And I was asking people, what's the smallest, so rather than time travel, not to change anything in the past, but what's the smallest amount of money that would change your life right now? Right? Like, anybody's life would be changed if I give you $1 billion. Anybody's life would be changed if I give you $1 million. Would your life be changed if I gave you $100,000?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If I gave you 10,000, so I started lowering the number of like, how much money would it take to change your life? What's the lowest amount of money? And then, because at a certain point, it's like, oh, maybe money isn't the thing that would change my life. It's the access to a new thing that money would buy, right? Like a new computer, classes at university to do some study, a focus thing. I learn a new language. If I learn a new language, I could travel to that country, work in that country that speaks that language, and it would change my life, right? So it became this thing of, I was on stage, I was talking to somebody, and someone was like, hey, some people don't really like being questioned about that sort of stuff because if it gives them anxiety. And I was like, that's a fair point, but also, like, how do you then empower yourself to think of ways to change your life? And then it's like, oh, some people don't want to change their life. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's the thing is sometimes people dwell on anxiety because, or not dwell on anxiety, they don't want to solve their anxiety or deal with the situations that come from the anxiety because even though it'll improve their life if they go after, whatever the topic is or issue is in their life, because there is safety in dealing with the devil rather than the devil you don't, where it's like, I'm comfortable with this amount of stress, and if I attempt this other thing, there may be more stress. So it's like they just want the current stress. They don't want the stress of having to change. And it's like growth. I understand that. I've done that myself.
I guess this is a product of having undiagnosed ADHD or some sort of like neurodivergent thing where in the processing, to me, it only makes sense to plan every possible outcome of a flow chart, if then statement, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you gave me $1,000, what would I do with $1,000? And then I would come up with if this, then that. If this, then I would do that. And then if this is, and I live in that world. Should have been a clue that I have some sort of mental problem. But it was also like, I found comfort in that thought process of like helping. like it, because it's not about traveling back in time and changing something in your life. It's about recognizing the things in your life that you would change right now and giving yourself some context in which to change it. You know what I mean? Like if I wanted to go back in time and tell young me to not smoke, right? To tell me young me not smoke, it's not necessarily even about physical fitness or all the money I would have saved not smoking. God, I think about that so much. How much money in my life I've wasted and literally lit on fire by smoking cigarettes. But that to me is like, oh, the focus of my life should have been recognizing my health as a thing that is a commodity, not to be taken for granted.
Yeah.
So that concept of like, okay, me doing all of this mental modeling is really just me recognizing what I would like to change and impact in my life. Now, where would I find the most benefit in change in my life?
Yeah. That was one of my problems when I was dealing with therapy, especially in the very beginning, where it was like I was so much of my anxiety and depression came from the regret spirals, whereas the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and the I should have done this, I could have done this. I wish I had a time machine fantasy. That whole thing. And it was just the whole thing. And then it was explained to me, like, what would you have done then? And how can you apply to what, use radical acceptance and say, I can't change what I did then, but how can I improve my current situation so that I don't have those kind of regrets in the future? So it is that thing of, acknowledge that the past did happen. Like the comment was, change anything because it's who you are today, but it's, what lessons can you learn from the regrets of the past, accept the situation you're currently in and apply those lessons to your current situation. And that's how you have a more productive future and a happier future with less anxiety.
Yeah, it is a tricky balance to like, because you should, I talk about this with my wife. We there's aspects of you said something last week, and I want to check in each week with stuff that we've mentioned in the past to see how we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I did not become a farmer. If you watched last week's episode, I did not grow anything, but the thought process is there because we are looking at planters and plant boxes for our balcony, and we have only direct light. So the thought process of growth and nature is in our minds.
Yeah.
But you mentioned this thing about not having a comparison, like gratitude. I forget the phrasing you used, but it was something about gratitude without comparison, or recognizing good things in your life without comparison.
On both sides, where it's like, don't compare yourself to somebody who has it better off, and don't compare yourself to somebody who has it worse off, where it's like, I should, I don't have a mansion, but at least I have an apartment. And it's like, well, I'm not homeless, so I should be grateful for the apartment I have. Where it's like, just be grateful for this apartment that you have. Just, you don't have to compare it to somebody who's worse or somebody who's less.
That is a difficult thing when it comes to recognizing, not like, it's easy to say like, this place is great. You know, it is great. My apartment's great. We've done a good job setting it up. We're very lucky to be able to handle this on one income. Like, we're very lucky, but we also set it up in a way that we can feel proud of the situation because the plan worked.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a thing to be proud of. When your plan, like, I love it when a plan comes together, A-Team style. That is a dated reference for literally anyone under the age of 30.
It's a dated reference I was about to say if you don't include the movie, but I just realized the movie was like 15 years ago. It's like, oh god. It's like a dated reference either way.
Yeah, the reboot, it's even dated for the reboot. I was saying about so having that gratitude and not comparing when it comes to talking about like the who you could have been comparison. It's hard. How do you balance that out? Because there is things where you're like, man, can I still get the results of that thing? Can I still achieve getting my degree, going back to school, learning another language? Can I still learn the things now that I'm older and more set in my ways than I am? You know what I mean? Like that concept of like, you were talking about the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I went through a phase a few years, like a while ago, that I was removing the word should from my vocabulary because this is Zeros on Heroes and we are nerds and the nerd references come. It creates that splitting timeline from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Where you create this whole other timeline, this whole other world. You're on this one. Yeah. You can never get over here. You'll never be able to get over here. In fact, the only thing you're doing is wasting energy. It's like if all of your mental energy is like a consumable resource, you're burning so much of that energy creating this alternate universe that you'll never be able to get to. Now, I used to think that way, where it's like, I should have did this, I should have did that, because it, like it's negative in the way that it creates expectation on yourself or on others. Oh, they should have said this. Yeah, but they didn't. Or like every dork who's watching a Star Wars thing and they hate it because they're stupid and narrow-minded and bigoted, and then it's like
they're not doing it the way I thought of it in my head. They should have done the story I wrote myself.
But they didn't. So you kind of have to. So it creates this like parallel dimension of like possibility, but then it forces acceptance for what it is that you kind of have. If you you have to it's you have to live on these multiple levels, and I think that's tiring for people. I think that like some people just don't have that. Like we didn't evolve. Our brains are not built to know as much as we know.
Yeah.
Like, again, another super nerdy reference. Johnny Mnemonic, he gets the implant where he's using his brain to store like a certain amount of data, and then he overloads it, and his brain's starting to short circuit. I feel like that's us all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like our brains evolved to hunt and gather, and maybe agriculture. Maybe. That's a societal development, but our genetic brains didn't. That's a learned thing. That's a cultural, societal, civilizational thing, or whatever you want to call it. Our brains evolved to hunt and gather and stick together because we need to survive.
Yeah.
It did not evolve to know every thought of every person that has access to Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, it did not evolve to know all these things.
Yeah, that's one of my least favorite myths is the whole like, oh, we only use 10% of our brain or whatever. It's like, no, we actually use 100% of our brain. And 100% of that brain was just to make sure we don't die and we eat food and we survive. It wasn't meant for calculating 10,000 different possibilities.
So many, every new thing that I read gives me another branch, and I'm like, oh, I need to start trimming these branches. I need to start doing a Loki and start doing the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
I need to TVA myself. Let it never be said that we didn't stick to a fucking brand, nerd things.
I think with the should-haves,
Koji says, any changes I make now, I make will be now. Eating better, walking. Okay. That really signifies living in the present. You know, like what can you invest in now to make improvements? The pressure that people have felt when you have these conversations in the past, I've seen people like really clinch up when you talk about self-improvement, because it does. I hope everyone understands that none of this feels like a judgment. None of this should feel like a judgment, but I can't control how you receive things because of all of the mental modeling and the processing you've lived with your whole life, But
I think a lot of that, like I said, has to do with like radical acceptance and accepting where you are and what your current situation. And it's called radical acceptance because you really do have to like really sit yourself down, like, and almost like a change or discard some of your goals and your dreams or whatever. For instance, if you were like, man, one of my goals is to make Forbes 30 under 30 list, but you're 40 years old now, that dream is never going to happen, and you have to accept that.
Yes.
The same way, if I can apply it to like something that helps with like my body dysmorphia and stuff like that, where it's like my weight fluctuated all the time. I was a fat kid, then I was a super skinny kid with the anorexia and the bulimia, and then I gained weight again. I was just fluctuating all the time. And because of that, I'm constantly trying to get that the Ryan Reynolds six-pack and all that. But because of all that fluctuation, I have like a good amount of excess skin And
Mm,
any
yeah.
sort of excess skin, if I have, like I was at like, I think I'm currently at like 13% body fat, and it's like, which is like, I have to sit myself down and be like, that's like athletic level body
You're in
fat.
the top like 1%, less than you're in the like. I do think that people like these numbers need context.
Yeah.
Body
Like,
fat percentage, like if you're saying, how much you weigh or how much body fat you have, any number you give should be like, it's like, oh, this girl's a 7 on a scale from 1 to 10. No, on a scale from 1 to 100, and you're like, oh, that's a different thing.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
like I think it's like the average male of my age has a body fat of between, I think it's like 20 and 26% of America. I mean,
well,
basically.
then I'm above average, baby.
But it's it's the thing of like, I have to do the radical acceptance of, I'm never gonna look like Ryan Reynolds on the cover of Men's Health because I do have this excess skin, and even though I have this excess skin, and it's not gonna look exactly like Ryan Reynolds because he's never had the fluctuating weight of the fat and skinny, so it's like I have to accept that this is what I look like. I'm never gonna have that taut look, but I can take gratitude in the fact that I currently am the healthiest I've ever been. You know, I have no shoulder pain. I have no joint pain at the moment. My back is fine. I'm very, very strong. I can take a healthy. I can pick things up without going, ugh. Like,
What's that like?
Ugh.
I stand from. I've been sitting too long. Old man noises.
It's, I didn't become some famous actor or whatever it is.
Well,
and
to be fair, he's also been in the public eye for his whole fucking life. This is a video that has been floating around in our "This is what we want to talk about" section. But this I've been waiting for a time to drop it. Seems like an opportune time. Whoops.
People know this guy doesn't even look like he works out. I don't think that people know what a non-steroided up body even fucking looks like anymore. Your relationship with the physique is just, what level of gear are you using? Is it like the Brad Pitt, a mildly geared up for Troy, all the way up to, Sam Sulek? Everyone here is using. We almost don't even know what an ideal, healthy male body looks like. And I'm guilty of that too. This guy doesn't even look.
So it's a powerful statement to say we don't know what a natural body looks like anymore.
Yeah.
Because there is no such thing as a natural body when you consider where our food comes from. Like the only natural body that could exist is one when natural bodies were the only option. Our food is different. Our water is different. Our access to healthcare is different. Our access to lifestyle is different. But it is a very real thing that if you're online and you see if you're in the public eye, the body you're supposed to have as perceived by the public is one that is unnatural. Like there's no, if you're, again, the comparison is a very difficult thing to have because you're never not going to compare and contrast against other things, because even now you just said you're the healthiest I've ever been.
Yeah, that's one of the things with especially steroids that are so prevalent, not just among fitness influencers, but among Hollywood celebrities, is people don't exactly know what steroids means, because for a long time it was like steroids was either WWE, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
A-Rod. Baseball got a real big steroid culture, public awareness of steroids for performance enhancing drugs.
A lot of bodybuilders, and you always picture this huge, gigantic dude that guy's on steroids. But steroids could also be like tren, which is really good at turning your muscles into body fat burners. So not to say like you mentioned Brad Pitt and Troy, but like that could very well have been, he could have been on tren, or like Kumail Nanjiani, who looks super ripped, and he got ripped within like 6 months, which is fast. So I'm guessing he was probably on tren. But it's like, if you just look at him, you go, wow, and when he posted the thing of like, hey everybody, I acknowledge that this is from personal trainers and personal chefs and Marvel blah blah blah, and everybody was like, wow, good for you for acknowledging that you had a whole team behind you and it's not attainable for the normal person. I was like, yes, but also, what were you injecting?
Right, exactly. It's like this wasn't just trainers, there was pharmacology involved.
Yeah.
And people like it's like when you hear people say that Jeff Bezos started Amazon in a garage, and then you're like, yeah, but he got given hundreds of thousands of dollars in startup capital by inheriting generational wealth. Like, he was gifted hundreds of thousands of dollars to start his business. That's not starting it out of a garage.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? The garage is attached to a big fucking house and a family that has hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's like, yeah, you know, I had like when, what's that guy, Rob McElhenney from, from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He got shredded for like, so that's arguably one of the best physiques I've seen in a long time, of somebody who you see the change. You saw it. He was on his show. He got fat on purpose and then shredded on purpose. Like, it was the swing was fully intentional for a joke, which I think is great. So funny that it did not matter that he did this in the show. In the show, they were like, why? Who told you to do this?
And for the record, I don't think he took steroids. I think he actually did what's an old school classic thing of the bulk and cut, where it's like he purposely got super fat and ate a bunch of high calorie foods to attain that fat level. But if you looked at him when he was fat, he still had like a build. You could see the muscle underneath the fat, and so then the cut was just like, he probably reduced his calorie intake from 4,000 to 5,000 calories down to 2, and then it like shredded off of him.
So the question then becomes, so he did it and he went out and he said, oh, it's easy. That whole post of like, and then he listed off all of the things, blah, 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 blah. I like it's for somebody like him who was already in shape before he got heavy, and then he trained hard for this specific thing. That was believable. But for someone to go in 6 months from nothing to something, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's everybody's genetics is different. Everybody's access to knowledge is different also. And everybody's approaches can be different. Like, I was doing the slow carb diet from the 4 Hour Body, Tim Ferriss stuff. And man, that worked for me. Boy, did it work for me. At the time I was doing it, when I was eating regularly, I had an eating schedule. I had my work schedule allowed me to eat a certain way. Before then, I was doing super limited calorie counting. Like, I would eat the same thing every day for 6 months. And I ended up going from like 325 to like 115, 215, 115. And I got, what I would say, that swing was so quick that it made me look sick.
Wow, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, it was like an uncomfortable amount of weight loss over a certain amount of time through no unhealthy way. Like, I was eating my calories, I was eating my protein, I was eating, you know, like 2 chicken breasts for lunch every day. I was eating, you know, a full dinner. I was doing all kinds of stuff. But because it was such a big swing from how unhealthy I had been, that swing, it's like one of those things when people lose weight and they're like, oh, you looked better big. It's like, can I not make anybody happy here with my, like, it's like, I didn't do it for you, motherfucker. I did it for the fact that my back was hurting. I was, you know, my stomach was on fire all the time for all the bullshit that I was eating. You know, like, all of my digestive processes were all jacked up. So there is an external influence, like being being someone like being in the public eye, that can't be disregarded, right?
Yeah.
Like, when I lost weight the second time, that it was more healthy, that was basically more like protein rich and more it was basically calorie reduction through carb counting as opposed to just reduced intake. The amount of attention I got from girls and all that stuff changed too. And it was like a hard lesson to be like, oh, it isn't just about health.
Mhm.
I was like, I turned into kind of an asshole about it, and I was like, oh, this is weird. This is what a weird feeling that the public perception of who I am as or the value I have changed
Yeah.
with my fitness and my weight loss, and mentally wrapping your head around that is kind of tricky.
Yeah, I think what's funny is when I was a fat kid, people made fun of me for being fat, and then when I was on the opposite side, when I was extremely skinny and gaunt, people made fun of me for being too thin, and then at that point where now it's like I have a athletic build to myself that people make fun of me for being too muscly or whatever it is, and it's like, man, what a lesson to learn that no matter what you look like, somebody will make fun of you for how your appearance is. So
Or
it's
at the
like,
very least, have an opinion that they feel like sharing, whether they
yeah,
view it as harmless or not, or whether they have any ill intent or not. It's amazing how many people will share their opinion about someone's body unsolicited. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this is very common in Latino communities, where if you're either too skinny or you're too fat, you're never fine.
yeah,
And if you know what I mean, like, ay, mira, está flaquito. Oh, you're so skinny. And then when you get it there, ay, está gordito, está montando. You're like,
yeah,
oh, you're gaining weight. Oh, hey, you're getting big. You gotta. It's like there's some cultural component to not to never being satisfied with your physical form.
yeah.
It almost sounds like a sci-fi movie, like something. It's like in Dragon Ball Z Cell, where he's like, "This isn't even my final form." It's like, easy. Keep your comments to yourself. I haven't reached my final form yet. My
Yeah.
final form will be when I'm dead in the ground or ashes in the wind. You know what I mean? That's my final form. Who cares?
What I find interesting about this new thing with how popular steroids and the idea behind that video shared is that nobody knows what a natural body looks like anymore. And I think we've talked about it in the past about like how the idea of what a masculine body looks like has changed, where it's like, back in the 60s and 70s, it was, Charlie Bronson and John Wayne. Those were what men looked like. It's, they didn't necessarily have to be jacked. And, when Arnold Schwarzenegger came out, he was a freak of nature, and it was more of a freak show kind of thing. And then it was
like an oddity. Yeah.
And then it got to be, I think, but nobody was like, that guy doesn't look good because he has a couple extra pounds. But then once it started getting to like the younger Gen X, older millennial generation, that's when it stopped being that women were the ones that were like, you need to look like this. This is what a woman should look like. And it started becoming like, men, this is what you need to look like. You need to look like you have a six-pack abs and you can be an Abercrombie model, and that's what an ideal man should look like. And so that's when it's like millennials and millennial dudes started to feel the same way that women had felt in the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Or throughout all of history.
And it has continued since then with all the men's health magazines and yada, 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 up until today. And now it's got to the point with, these fitness celebrities online or whatever it is, where it's, Gen Z or Gen Alpha, whatever it is now, that's 16, 17 years old. Some of these kids are starting to take SARMs and steroids, and it's like, yo, you as an 18-year-old male are naturally producing the most testosterone you will ever produce in your entire life, and you're fucking up your body by when you inject testosterone and these steroids. Your body is going to go, oh, I don't need to produce anymore because I'm already getting it from outside sources. So it's going to stop producing steroids.
Yes.
And now you're destroying your body for the future. So it's like, most of the times when you ask these bodybuilders, like, hey, should I take steroids? It's like, have you done everything you possibly can? Have you been training for 15 to 20 years in the gym and you've reached a plateau that you can no longer go? And are you doing bodybuilding professionally? Are you going to make a paycheck out of this?
Yeah.
If you're going to do it so you can make money out of this and you've already put 20 years in the gym, sure, go ahead. But if not, if you're just doing it so you can look good on Instagram, chill out.
Right. Well, it's interesting how you mentioned someone I know, two things. Someone I know was on gear for their teen, like, youth career because they were playing sports, and they started doing steroids for performance enhancement, and it fucked them up that to the point where they are on TRT and at 30, like at 30 years old. That's one thing. They're having to navigate this managing of their hormones in a way that like a diabetic would, or somebody with a thyroid problem would. You have to like externally, if you have like hypothyroidism, you have to introduce from an external source the stuff that your fully functioning thyroid would produce. The same thing for diabetics. You have to bring in insulin because that's what your pancreas would produce. Your pancreas is not working right. If your testicles are not producing, if your testes are not producing the testosterone because you did it, there's also that mental edge of like, fuck, I did it to myself.
Yeah.
You know, I also know somebody who gives their children melatonin to go to sleep.
Yeah, same thing.
And I'm like, that is going to cause a problem later on, just medically speaking, just chemistry, where physiologically your body, in the same way, will stop producing its own melatonin. The recovery arc, if possible, for that is so long that the detrimental effects could last into the adulthood. Like, you know, like it's like a balancing act of like, it's helping you right now.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation you're thinking of is helping you right now. And when you're young, or you're a child and you're handling the raising of a kid, and you're just like anything to get them to go to sleep. Yeah. It's like, at what point is that drugging them? You know, at what point are you not drugging yourself? At what point are you not, like short-term goal thinking versus long-term goal execution? You're gonna future you is gonna be so mad at you at present you. And I think about past me all the time, being like, that fucking idiot. And then in my mind, I'm like, at the time, I wasn't even thinking of future me. You know, if you think of it as a completely different person that you're going to unload your problems on later, it changes the perspective a little bit, and it's kind of scary when you realize how much mileage, and that mental hurdle or that wall that comes up because of that. Man, I should have not smoked my whole life. That's mine. That's one of mine. I should have focused more on like when I played football in high school, and the coaches were telling me to eat as much as I can to get as big as I can, so I could be, a better offensive lineman. Something that does nothing for you in the real world other than give you back problems and diabetes is one of those things where I'm like, man, I would go back and punch every coach I had that said that shit in the mouth. You know what I mean? Like it's a struggle. So when it's like, what does a natural body even look like anymore? It's like, I don't know, man. Like the pressure of a kid being told to eat as much as he could, that's not naturally what my body would have looked like without some external sort of motivation. Yeah. So I get it, and the recovery then becomes this process of unlearning certain behaviors. That's why this podcast is what it is, because it's about the mind affecting the body, affecting the mind, affecting the world. Like it's all connected, because now I'm on gear, right? I gain a bunch of muscle. I look fucking jacked. I get online and I tell everybody what to do except the thing that I did to get big.
Yeah.
Now, the people who hear that, a 16-year-old, a child, a guy playing football, some JV football guy thinks, oh, this is what I got to do. Why am I not getting the same results?
Yeah.
Let me juice. And then that person has damaged their body in some way. And it's created like this network of like looping behavior. It's unfortunately universal at this point. It's not even in different ways. It's not even like men, women, gender thing. It's literally the expectation of a world that we now have full access to everybody's opinions about our bodies. Yeah. You post it. I wish I could have a social media site that just doesn't have comments on anything, so people could just share their stuff and that's it. Because if you go into the comments of literally anything, it is rage inducing.
Yeah.
And also like everyone on earth is dumb.
I remember I recently posted something about how Dolly Parton espouses liberal beliefs, and someone made a death threat against me,
Mm.
and but in the death threat it said you can lift as many weights as you want and get as have many muscles or whatever, but I'll still come after you with a pipe or whatever it was. I forgot what the comment was, but it was like, this dude went through my Instagram, and I haven't posted a gym selfie in months. Like, this dude,
Right. How deep did he go?
he was like, I need to see what this fucking little liberal bitch looks like. And then it got to like me, like with like muscles, and it was like, yeah, I still need to make fun of his physical appearance somehow.
Yeah. I'll
And I was
find
like,
something.
what a fuck! Like, he had to find he had to describe my physical appearance to like try to intimidate me or whatever. And it's just like, hey, you're a fucking loser.
And he will never know how dumb that is.
Yeah.
To him, that was, I got him. Like he will never know ultimately in the grand scheme of things how like when I see people comment on ads.
Oh my God.
I'm like, who are you people that are doing this? What are you talking about? When I see somebody post a comment on a celebrity's
God.
I'm like, why do you think they're going to respond to you? First of all, it's a PR person 99% of the time. And if they do comment on, it's like one of those things of like, I don't know if it's part of the depression or anxiety or whatever, some sort of mental health, but I think it's healthier to assume that no one wants to hear my opinion than the egotistical, maniacal thoughts of everyone needs to know what I think about this ad or this. You know what I mean? Like, which one's crazier?
I think there is some issue with the parasocial kind of thing of, like, for instance, somebody who comments on The Rock's photo of him at the gym says, looking good, Rock. But it's he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He's not going to read that. Or like somebody replying to Arby's, like, "Wow, that looks really good," and it's like, what do you? Arby's doesn't give a shit about you. The Rock doesn't care about you. The Rock wants you to buy his Zoa. Arby's wants you to buy their curly fries. There's no exchange here.
The irony, of course, being that for that moment, this happens a lot in the D&D community. There's like these big giant. Here's what happens. I believe it stems from this idea that a lot of things are underground before they become popular, mainstream, right? So when in the D&D community, there's a group called My Brother, and Me. It's these three brothers and their father played. My Brother, Me is their podcast, and then they did a podcast called The Adventure Zone, which is the three brothers, right? Their family, and their father playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? One of my favorite pieces of media, that first arc when it was like this undiscovered little nugget of like pocket thing, where it was amazing. It's one of my favorite things on media. That whole first arc, the balance arc, is one of my, like, I think about it more fondly than I think about some of my favorite movies from childhood. Like, it is genuinely this kind of lightning in a bottle thing that lasted a few years and created this entire ecosystem for them that they now exist in. If they've existed so long publicly that they've also burned like 9 million bridges. But at the time, everyone developed this little thing fits in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And the second it doesn't fit in my back pocket anymore, and other people can give their opinions about it and publicly disagree with me on that this is the most beautiful and perfect thing that ever existed, you start to get real defensive over yourself through this piece of media. Happens with Star Wars, happens with comic books, happens with Marvel, happens with everything that people latch onto, right? They find a self-worth through their consumption of media, or whatever you want to call it. So with social media, it's like, hey, let's encourage that even more. And now we have the current presidential election cycle. We have the current political landscape where everyone just values themselves over hot takes.
Yeah.
They value themselves over literally the most obvious, like, public cash grabby, grifty fucking things in every side, even the super progressive side that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
There's people who, the second you say one negative thing about Bernie Sanders, people are like, "I'll fucking kill you." It's like, whoa. Are you mad? Do you think I'm insulting you, or do you think my opinion is about some other thing?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, there's no delineation anymore.
I think this is some therapy talk again, but it's the thing of I've seen, especially with the current political system and everything, is that even amongst politicians, the concept of like wise mind, where it's
What's
like,
that?
so it's like whenever you make a decision on something, you should use wise mind, where you have the emotional mind,
Okay.
and then you have the rational mind. And then when you combine those, you have wise mind, because the emotional mind is my wants and my needs, and the rational mind is, do I really need that? Do I really want that? And then you can put it together. But a lot of what you don't want to do is you don't want to react in an emotional mind, because when you do that, you're throwing out reason. So a lot of the when people get into politics or Star Wars or whatever, I'm including politics in fandoms, because that's basically what it is now.
Fandoms. It's just fandoms now.
It's fandoms and it's gatekeeping in such a
Yeah.
weird, ridiculous way. But it's, I like this. I like the new show with the Acolyte. You like the show with the Acolyte? Well, blah, 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 blah. Or it's like, hey, I like this political candidate. Who you care? You blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh no, you need to take a second and realize, is this the correct response to someone saying they like something or they didn't like something? Whereas, if somebody says, I didn't like the Acolyte because I thought the pacing of the show, was off, I would say, oh, you know what? I really like the Acolyte, but I understand where you're coming from. And,
Right.
I respect that you didn't like the show. And hopefully there's something in the future that you will like in that Star Wars community. Right. Instead of like, well, you're fucking wrong. The Acolyte was the greatest show ever.
Right. I will say that, Koji, Acolyte left me hanging. Yeah, that's what TV shows do. That's a season finale. That's the appropriate response. Like, so many movies want to be TV, like the MCU, where it's like you have to have watched every season to understand what's going on right now. And then, but that's not how movies should work. Movies should be movies. Yeah. And then there's so many TV shows that want to be movies, where it's like, and that wraps up the story. It's like, well, no, these are episodic storytelling. There has to be some sort of tiered storytelling of the show's arc, the scene story, the episode story, the season story, and the show overall as a story. Like, you can tell. That's why TV has gotten that golden age of TV with, like, The Sopranos was like one of the shows that people point to. Mad Men. There's like an arc on every level, and this show had that. And there is no season 2. Yes, because they have to do season 1 first.
I am actually going to agree with the commenter. This is an issue I have recently with a lot of TVs, because I do like a good cliffhanger at the end of the season. But my issue is you should only have a cliffhanger at the end of your season if you are already guaranteed for a second season, because in the current climate, especially where Netflix will cancel a series if it doesn't get enough viewers in the first week or something like that, where it's like, if you 100% know you're getting a second season, by all means, I love a good cliffhanger. The Boys knows they're going to come back for a final season, so they ended this season with a cliffhanger. The Acolyte is not guaranteed for a second season yet.
Did they announce that it's not coming back?
They didn't announce it's not coming back, but they also didn't announce that there's a second season. So it's like, this could be the final season, and they're going to have to wrap it up in the comic books or whatever it is. For instance, like Solo, a Star Wars story, ends with Kira meeting Darth Maul, and everybody goes, wow, what's going to happen now? And now we don't have a sequel to it. So it's like, I would prefer a standalone movie if you don't know you're going to have a sequel, and I would prefer a standalone season if you don't know you're going to have a second season.
I think that is actually a product of the current streaming business model bullshit.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that is. You're right. There is the idea of you shouldn't do something in a continuing theme without the guarantee. But then you also have shows like that. That's never been not true. Like you always have shows that you want to see more of, and people talk about shows that were canceled early all the time, like Firefly and things like that, that then have to find some other medium to tell the story. And again, it's that business versus artistic expression kind of thing, where because now everything is only beholden to their stakeholders and shareholders, doesn't matter. They just want to get as much money. They want to like streaming is all about having content available for distribution.
Yeah.
Not the quality of the content available for distribution, because it's not about individual purchase. Like I'm not buying the episode of The Acolyte. I'm buying a subscription to the episode, to this platform that has all that stuff. So again, that's a much bigger conversation. Other than you know what I mean? Like that is a huge conversation that is not about self-improvement. That's like answering the current global economic crisis of what's wrong with everything. And it's basically the pursuit of I guess it does kind of tie in, because if we loop back around to like, because let's you know, like in this is a good time to wrap everything up, because we are an hour into the show and this is wonderful. We can end on a nice tight 1 hour. But to recap last week, I said that I wanted to be my goal for my body was to mimic a farmer, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's as close to what we have evolved to do as possible, right? To naturally influence the world around us to produce enough for our families so that we can eat, thrive, survive, outlast the winter, grow again in the spring, and thrive in the summer. You know, like those kind of like, we're not planning anything more than just our individual survival and the survival of others, and thriving in maybe comfort with work. Like work it's never like this utopian ideal that, you know, that will just be, everything will be supplied for us. You still have to work, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that we're seeing like the what happens when people try to make money off of a human's existence, where everything is like a billable hour, you know, like everything is a subscription. You don't own anything anymore. And then it's just this constant cycle of the price you pay for having things provided to you and your life made easier.
Yeah.
That is also a motivation for farming in the mind category, I guess, at this point. Did your goals for body for last week were to do deadlifts and your like morning routine?
Oh,
like
to include like stretching in the morning,
right?
And and I did I did both deadlifts today, and also did a boxing class today.
Oh,
and I did that. I did both of those, and when I was doing the deadlifts, actually I do squats and deadlifts on the same day because I'm a crazy person.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, but I remember as I was today, because we also talked about knowing your limits and stuff like that. When I was doing some squats, I was gonna go for three repetitions, but after the first one, I felt like a good unfun tension in my back.
Yes.
And I went, you know what? I don't need to lift all this weight.
Right.
Let me reduce this weight, and I'll increase the repetitions, and maybe someday in the future I'll go up again. But I would rather be healthy than let my ego get a massage.
Yes, there is that immediate recognition. Like that's one of the reasons why. Remember, I was swimming a couple weeks ago. I started swimming because I felt that unfun. Like there's a difference between like that good use of muscle and where all of a sudden you're like, oh, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that. I ironically did your thing. I've been doing my morning routine more because of my back, because of the issues that I started doing morning PT stuff, like, you know, all the stuff to work out your glutes and your hip flexors stuff. So I did it all this morning, and man, if it doesn't make a difference and you start to feel better and you're like, Jesus, I should be doing this every morning. What is wrong with me? You know, we're trained to think that on your day off, you just got to sit at home and you wake up late and all stuff. you should be waking, like the goal is to eventually be at a point of satisfaction that with your life in some way, that you wake up even more for yourself than for anything else. Like, I got to wake up early and go to work, but on my days off, I'm going to wake up early and get my morning routine in. I'm going to get my morning coffee. I'm going to sit and read for an hour. I'm going to do, like you start to find ways to energize yourself, like you wake up early. You look forward to starting your day because you're going to do so much stuff. Like, these are the things that have been told to me.
Yeah.
I've never personally experienced this, but I've been told that these are goals that you should have.
I think to help with the wrap up and to bring everything full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning, so many people say like, I got to work out. I got, it's a task I have to do, and maybe I'll put it off till later, or whatever it is. And it goes back to what you're talking about before about the anxiety of the whole thing of like, why would you ask that question? Because now it's going to make me think, I gotta earn more money, or I gotta do whatever. I gotta solve these problems. But it's literally like you said, if you wake up in the morning and go, I have to exercise. I have to stretch today. Let me do some stretches. Let me do some push-ups. Let me do some squats. It takes 15 minutes in the morning. But like you said, the rest of the day, you're like, I feel great. This is, I feel accomplished.
Really
I accomplished something in the morning. Maybe I'll accomplish something later. Maybe I'll wash the dishes. I'll fold the laundry in the chair that I haven't folded. So it's, you start your day off with an accomplishment, and the rest of your day is going to be problem solving.
Would you say that there's a collateral benefit to the walk? It is the title of the show. It's like they said the name of the movie in the movie. That's genuinely a perfect encapsulation of why we're here every morning. Thank Mom Koji. I know them. That's my stepmom. But Mom Koji, thank you for watching. There's some other people there watching. Thank you. If you've tuned into this later on in the future, follow us at Zeros on Heroes, at Mike Mercadal, William A. Watkins. Hold on. There.
And if it's from the future, also tell us how Stephen Hawking's party was.
Yeah, go back and give it. He's we made fun of him earlier. He's kind of a dork, but also like he's one of the most brilliant minds of our race, our species and our existence. But yeah, follow us on the social media, and so you can be notified when we go live again. We try to do this every Sunday. Other things happen that we have to reschedule, but if you follow us, you'll know when we go live. And let's my goals for this week. We'll do body, mind, and community. My goals for this week for body, it's going to be to do. I'm going to steal your deadlift routine. I want to start doing some more. You hurt my feelings a little bit with the deadlifts. Is just picking stuff up off the ground. Yeah. It shouldn't be hard to pick up stuff off the ground, and it is for me. And I'm because of my issues. And I'm like, ooh, you know what? If that is a spot that I feel like weird about, I'm gonna not turn away from it. I'm going to not ignore it. I'm going to go at it head on and see how I can improve. What is your goal this week for your body?
Kind of has to go along with that, which is I was doing some more research into proper deadlifts and everything like that, and somebody pointed out that deadlifts are not great for hypertrophy. They're not good for if you want to build muscle. It's not the greatest thing to build muscle. It's like
shelf booty.
Yeah, it's not it's like a C or a D tier if you want to build hypertrophy, build muscle, but it's great if you want to build strength, which is why they have it at bodybuilding, at Olympic powerlifting and stuff like that, because you either have the 1 rep strength, or for the average human being, if you go with a lighter weight and you just go for 3 sets of 15 or whatever it is, you're building everyday strength. You're not building going for 3 reps or whatever it is. You're going for that good everyday healthy strength.
Yeah. Just the natural everyday strength.
Yeah.
That's functional, I guess just like what do they call it? The office chair booty. Have you heard that's like the new thing? I saw somebody post about it. Desperately trying to avoid office chair booty, and then it's like someone with a standing desk, like doing squats at their desk and doing just desperately avoiding the sitting. And I'm like, that, you know what? That's a kind of admirable goal too, because that I feel like my job is very sedentary, so I'm either going to go from laying down flat to standing up vertically. There's going to be no hinge unless it's for power, for strength development.
Yeah.
What about your mind? What are you going to work on for your mind today?
For my mind, I am going to allow myself to relax.
Ooh, interesting. No elaboration needed.
Yeah.
Just relax.
Relax, baby.
That's good.
Relax.
Hey, that's an admirable goal. I was going through that. I was talking about that. I was trying to go. I was having a conversation about like my back and fitness, all stuff, and we were talking about like getting like, and I was like talking about sleep. Because I work on night shifts, so that becomes like a very common topic. It's like a commodity. Like people talk about. It's an obsession for some people.
Yeah.
Who are on night shift to make sure that they get enough sleep. And I was talking about how like sometimes I will lay down and it's almost like my body has forgotten every comfortable position that it's ever known. Like it's literally like, how do I sleep? What is happening what is the position that I should be getting in? And basically, long story short, I have to like consciously relax all my muscles, like physically, like I'll take a deep breath and just lay down and allow all my muscles to relax to the point where I felt my back crack, like where I'm like, oh, click, and I'm like, oh, I was holding something a little tight there. I was a little clenched up. I'll feel like my calves stretch out. I have a lot of like the sciatica activity down my leg. That the tingles and the jingles, and it is not fun. It is because it feels like you're going to cramp at any time. And I felt it where like I relax and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, and it's for the body and the mind. What a specific focus. I will, in my job, there's a lot of changes going on where, they're building a new hospital. We're trying to figure out all these things. There's a lot of people with opinions, and there's a lot of people that can literally ruin your day with just their presence.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And mentally, my goal will be to deflect or just like water off a duck's back, not let those things get a purchase point into me where it's like, hey, man, I'm all of these decisions are above my pay grade. I don't have any, allusions to, I'm going to act my wage. That's a big one where, hey, I'm not a supervisor. I don't need to be supervising nothing. I'm not a manager. I don't need to manage nothing. I am here to do a job, and I will do that job. And that's the ceiling. And all of this chaos that seems to be self-inflicted in certain ways, I will allow to happen apart from me.
Yeah. I've been thinking the phrase, it's a very kitschy, schlocky thing, but the whole like, not my circus, not my monkeys. I've been doing that a lot, and it's like, I kind of kick myself because it's kind of like a douchey kind of thing to say, but it's also like, yeah, man, whatever.
I said it at work. I'm like, I don't really have an opinion on that, and people were like, what? And there was I had to have a conversation with my boss. This was like a kind of one of those dangerous conversations when you bridge that, hey, just between us, there's certain people in my job that are they are suggestion level people, not decision level people. But they think they're decision. So they think they're the ones making decisions. They are making suggestions to the person who makes decisions. The person who makes decisions has the power to take your suggestion and you know what I mean? Like are you a suggestion person or are you a decision person? Is your opinion suggestion level, or are you expected to make a decision? So the idea that knowing you're a suggestion person is invaluable because I can make a suggestion, but I don't have an opinion on that matter.
Yeah,
And it's perfectly fine. It's so much power. All right. For the community side of things, I think that's where I'm going to be also. I think that will help people to be somebody who's like, hey, know your place, but not in an aggressive, like insulting way. Know your role and shut your mouth. It's more like, hey, know your role. You get to know your role. You get to shut your mouth. You get to not have an opinion. That's a privilege. That is like a valuable thing for peace of mind to realize I don't have to any expectation of me to do anything other than be present and do my job. Like that's it. Give you the gift of knowing your role and shutting your mouth.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll go along with that too. To go for work, there's a new guy at work who is kind of getting intimidated.
Bob Ross. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your. But I'm coaching a little Bob Ross, a little Bob Ross, a little. Let's not forget
some happy trees. Yeah,
some happy little accidents.
Yeah, there's a new guy at work. He's been kind of getting intimidated by a suggestion person who's been acting like a decision person, and I've been kind of his supporter and cheerleader behind the scenes, reminding him, telling him basically that. I might even use that phrase with him this week. Of the, hey man, don't worry about it. You don't have anything to worry about. You're good. You do your job, kind of thing. So maybe that's just provide support for anybody in need. Is what I'm going to do this week.
If someone needs context for their stress, to give it like a scale, right? Like again, we're talking about the body fat percentage of like, you have 13% body fat. Someone could be like, 13, is that good or bad? What is on a scale of what? It's like what's average or what? Because it's so it's like, I'm so stressed out. It's like, oh, but on a scale of what?
Yeah.
Right. Like is your stress overinflated? Is it, are you looking at it in such a tight window that you can't realize that if you zoom out a little bit, it's not worth it, or at the very least, it's like more manageable if you zoom out, so providing a context is invaluable for that sort of thing.
My last time I was with my therapist, we were talking, and something bad happened to somebody in my family. And she said, how would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst? How you personally feel? And I was like, oh, it's an 8. And she said, you have to be really, it's almost going to sound mean, but is it an 8 for you or is it an 8 for them?
Ooh.
And I was like, oh,
yeah,
it's an 8 for them. But it didn't personally happen to me. So it's almost kind of like I was absorbing their sadness, so it's like it wasn't actually an 8 for me. It was probably, it sounds terrible, but it's on a personal level it was a 4 for me because I feel bad for them, but it's like it didn't happen to me.
Completely understand that. As a healthcare worker, former EMS person, paramedic, showing up on scene of people having the worst fucking day of their lives, and maybe ending their life, like the end of their life, at the end of someone they love. It's like the most practiced thing I have in my life is to separate myself from, is this about me or is it not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there have been times where I've seen horrible things that have affected me, but the thing didn't affect me. The awareness of that situation happening to somebody and being present for it, and having stuff in my head that, fuck, I'm never going to unsee this.
Yeah.
That is my part. It will never, it's too complete, but there is still a line there. There's still the separation. So it's one of those things where I feel honored to like be present and the person whose job it is to know and be calm and to like kind of like care on you from the river Styx. Like, I'm the guide, right? What a comfort to have somebody who is not freaking out in those moments and still being effective and knowing what they're doing and all that stuff. So like my calm was a gift to people who are going through the 8.
Yeah.
The 4 that it is for me, where it's like, ugh, like, oh, I have to not show it on my face, and I can be, like, let them have their 8, let them have their 9, let them have their 10, and I'll be over here. I don't want to make my 3 anybody else's problem.
Yeah.
until I process all of this stuff later. But like that's the kind of like catch-22 of it all. So it's like completely understandable that you have to separate yourself. Is it an 8 for them or an 8 for you? Is a valuable question, super valuable question. But yeah, love that. The focus for the community is know your role and shut your mouth, and kind of, but like in a good way. Also, what a fun thing. A good end on the show. And the good news, my dad is under 300 pounds.
Yo, that's amazing.
All right, good for him. That's bad. I gotta catch up. I gotta start working because I'm still. He's gonna pass me. A little competitiveness is never gonna go. Fathers and sons, you know what I mean? That's great. I'm gonna call him after this. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Again, follow us at Mike Mercadal, at William A. Watkins on all social media. Join us live. Get in the comments if you have anything you want to talk about that you don't feel you're seeing this later. Go to zeroesonheroes@gmail.com and you can send us a message and we can talk about it on air, and share with us what your focuses have been for this week in your mind, body, and community. Why not? Well, we want to hear from you. We want to encourage the building of community, even on the show. Hey, Mom Koji, we're epic. You guys are epic. How fun. Thank you, everybody. And I'm trying to figure out a good dismount for the show.
Because we got the go out and be heroic.
Be heroic.
I'm just trying to look like you.
Just trying to look like you. But I think collateral benefit is, I think we should go out there, do good and do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because eventually it all builds on itself and ripples out. So go out, do good, do well.
Do good, do well. I like that.
Whatever you do it good.
And do it well.
Go out and do good, and go out. Eventually, some marketing person will help us come up with a better slogan. But until then, go out and be heroic, and
just trying to look like you, bro.
Just trying to look like you, bro. Go out, do good, do well.
Hey, do it. Do it.
Catch